Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. I'm Robyn,
And I'm Gil.
and we are Rockin the LOVE. So, we are so excited to see you here and have you here. And this is the last Wednesday of the month.
The last Wednesday of April, 2022.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, we're all the way through 2022. This is 16 episodes. That's 4 episodes 4 times. We've been doing this 4 months.
But I wasn't thinking so much about us. It's just that it's May. Can you believe it?
Well, it's not May, it's April.
Yes, I live with this. Okay, so it's almost May, and that just happened quickly,
It did.
in the blink of an eye. So, first of all, if you're joining us from somewhere else, which you are because you're not in our bedroom, please put in where you're joining us from and let us know exactly where that is and
who you are and what you'd like us to know and whether or not you like vanilla ice cream. I don't know, just whatever. Just let us know. Keep us in the loop. We want to know. We're inquiring.
Forever a camp counselor. It's like you can't shake it. Oh, okay, I'm sick. That's my excuse today. I have been under the weather for a week, which is very unusual for me, isn't it?
It's very unusual, particularly this kind of thing. We generally never sick, Robyn.
Never sick. Pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
This one threw me for a loop. So, yeah, and it's just one of those really bad colds that I'm sneezing, I'm coughing, I'm keeping Kleenex in business, and yeah,
along with Ricola.
Along with Ricola, and I'm a little loopy, but I'm trying to be present. And you, how has your week been?
My week has been just fine, with the exception of being stressed.
As our godson would say, that's cap.
If you don't know what that means, apparently it means that's a lie.
That's cap. That's a lie. So everything to this teenage boy is we say, why don't you go upstairs and get something to eat? There's bread in the refrigerator. That's cap. It's like, what? Why are you talking like that? So, yeah. So, no, his week has been stressful.
It's been a lot. Just a lot. Just working through a lot of ideas in my head, what's possible, what's not possible, what we should do, how we should do it.
If it's even going to happen.
To do it? Can we not afford to do it? Can we afford not to do it? Those just, every question under the sun, which, is part of what we're really talking about today is how much do we plant questions in our heads?
Yeah, and how much do we futurize? And that's like when we plant a seed and then we talk about is it going to happen or not happen or this or that, and we get ahead of ourselves and I don't know, I'll just speak for myself, but I'm the biggest crazy maker of me that I know. It's I can talk myself in or out of things in no time flat. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's valid what's going on here.
So, this month we've been talking about awakening the garden, which kind of makes sense. It's springtime, right? Things are starting to show up outside that maybe haven't been. It's just sort of that idea. And so, what did we talk about first? Remember?
No.
Okay. So, we talked about clearing the garden. So, at the beginning of the season, you kind of got to clear stuff out. And so we just talked about that idea of how we clear things out of our lives, get the stuff out that's no longer needed.
How we prepare.
And then we talk about assessing. How do we assess what's going on? We have to assess where we're at. What we got to be a little bit honest with ourselves about what's really showing up. Is it what we want? And where do we want it to go? And then what we talk about?
You can't ask me any questions. I'm sick.
Did you not get the memo? I didn't know that. Okay.
I'm like, what?
It's right here on the screen.
Okay, go ahead.
So last week we talked about amending the soil, amending, how do we, what's that about? And sort of the idea of, we got to add the proper nutrients. We've got to prepare the space for whatever we're going to plant. We've got to get things in order. So we've cleared out the old stuff. We've assessed what we really want, and then we start preparing for it and laying a foundation. And this week,
wait, but last week there was, because that was the week our producer wasn't here and we had our sub producer. So I remember that they were very complimentary about intention and how important that was to a relationship.
Yes. Yeah, Laura
Sorry.
Topper reminded us last week of being an intention. Excuse me, we got a little cold action going on over here.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Okay. So I'd cut off your mic, except it's my mic too. So
I
I'm
know
kind of
you
stuck.
can't do that. Okay.
So yeah, so that idea of amending, setting our intention, what are we looking for? And this week we are talking about planting the seeds and nurturing the seeds. So what's that going to be about? Any idea?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because there's a lot of stuff that we plant in our lives, a lot of stuff out there that we may or may not want, but we somehow have it out there. Actually, I found something from Thich Nhat Hanh I thought I'd share.
Okay.
Thich Nhat Hanh says this: your mind is like a piece of land planted with many different kinds of seeds. Seeds of joy, peace, mindfulness, understanding, and love. Seeds of craving, anger, fear, hate, and forgetfulness. These wholesome and unwholesome seeds are always there, sleeping in the soil of your mind. The quality of your life depends on the seeds you water. If you plant tomato seeds in your gardens, tomatoes will grow. Just so, if you water a seed of peace in your mind, peace will grow. When the seeds of happiness in you are watered, you will become happy. When the seed of anger in you is watered, you will become angry. The seeds that are watered frequently are those that will grow strong. So I think Thich Nhat Hanh kind of takes this tack that, and one thing I like about it is it acknowledges the reality that we all have all these thoughts, all these different feelings and ideas in our mind about how the world works and how things work in our lives. And sometimes we think, oh, everyone's against me, or so-and-so doesn't like me, and so therefore, and we all have those things. And the question is, even though those seeds are out there, just like in a real garden, there's weeds, there's stuff out there we don't really want. Are we going to nurture those? Are we going to keep watering those? Are we going to notice them and pull them out or put them aside and stop nurturing them? And I think that's a key. That's a key.
I think it's a key, but I think that's easier said than done, because it's like yes, you're either going to go grow flowers or you're going to go grow weeds, right? I mean, that's just the way the mind and the system is. That's the short of what he's saying. But just because you know this information doesn't mean you can necessarily stop yourself, right?
Well, what are you talking to me?
Yes, taxi driver. Are you talking to me? Yeah, I'm talking to you. No, I'm talking to the general, because I mean, how many times do we walk ourselves through it and keep talking and talking and talking, even though we know, especially all of us in New Thought or metaphysically inclined people are like, yeah, change your thinking, change your life. Yeah, it's all good. It's all da da da. But how can you really make that shift?
It's a good question. First of all, Laura, thank you for acknowledging Robyn and holding her in love. That's very sweet. So she wants to type to you, but she's a little perplexed.
No, I'm not. Go.
So what were we saying? I got lost.
How do you make that real? How do you stay on the real? Because we get caught in the humanness of what's going on, right?
Right.
You get caught in everything that's going on in your life is the end all be all, that if you don't figure out this right solution, the right thing isn't going to happen.
Right.
And amidst that, you start thinking of all the wrong things that are going to happen. And then we're planting the wrong seeds. And how do we stay on track to plant the right seeds?
I think for me, it's about figuring out. It's a lot about figuring out how to let go of the ones I don't want, to not hang on to them. Because when I hang on to them, they inevitably get put in the soil. And if I can let go of them, if I can release them, if I can not focus on them, it's different. And I guess another thing that's come up for me in the last few days is really needing to figure out that space for myself to be reminded of what the truth is, to be reminded of the truth of the universe being for my good, for our good, for the good of everyone. Being reminded that love is the most powerful thing out there and the most powerful thing in here. And so taking the time to read, taking the time to be in meditation, taking the time to pray, those are the things that help me stay with those positive seeds. Because otherwise I'm focused on the other, and then those become big. And as those become big, then that's what I'm expecting. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm seeing in my world. And that doesn't work.
Yeah,
very
interesting. And I'm just thinking about all the relationships that this happens in. Like I was thinking about for a long time, my relationship with money was well, I loved it, and I knew that whenever I needed it, it would come to me, and it was always overflowing, and I never lacked for what I wanted to do because that's just the way it was. And then I met you.
Woo!
Well, I met you, and you have boundaries around it, and I didn't have boundaries. You have boundaries about how it should be, and how if you do this with your money, then this won't happen, and this will happen. And we had to make sure we had a certain amount. I mean, there was more of a budget thing, and I'm not saying any of that's bad. I'm just saying for me, it put me on lockdown, right? So all my superpowers were cut off. I was like, okay, and I bought into the thing to where like it was a bit of scarcity and fear and not knowing if it was really gonna um turn change or how it was gonna end up. And I was just trying to think back when you were saying that, like, so how did we change that? And I think like for me, why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because you remember the day that we sat down? I don't know, it was in
Yep.
Panera or somewhere?
No, it was in Starbucks.
Starbucks.
Yep. We sat down and we had a conversation, having a marital moment. Did you see that? How we like mind melded? We sat down and we were going to go over our finances. And go ahead. Every time we go over our finances, we would fight. We would fight, and probably I cried. I don't know, but I mean, it just wasn't a good thing.
But we didn't fight this time.
No,
No.
we sat down.
And we looked through what we had, and we looked through our income, and we discovered that we were pretty prosperous.
We were like, oh my God, we have more money than we think. Yeah. And we were like so excited. Yeah. And but that shifted our money. Do you remember?
Yeah, because then it was like, oh no, we're
And it
gonna
was like,
lose this.
oh no, we got to hold on to it. So, yeah, so it is an interesting journey. But what I was about to say before was, I can't believe I even remember that, is that I think that I shifted that relationship back, I think, out of pure exhaustion. That one day I just said, I can't do this anymore. And, went and let go of those thoughts and went back to know it at every turn kind of thing. And I know that sounds a little mumbo jumbo, jargony, magical, but I had to take that moment to like really readjust and realign with the truth of who I am. And the minute I did, what happened?
It shifted.
And I came to you, and what did I have? A secret account. A secret account that I let you in on. And it was more money than I'd ever had in the bank, because before I was living on, it'll come and there'll be enough. And there always was. There was always enough, but there was just enough.
Just enough.
Just enough. Now I had like an account with like, I don't know, $18,000 in the bank. And he was like, we're broke. I don't know what to do. Da, da, da. I was like, da, 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 da. With my, bank account book, if they only had those anymore. But yeah, so I say all that just to say, like, how and what do we plant seeds? So I see that John Chastain has showed up, and that makes me so happy.
Yes, it does.
Because I thought to myself, he cannot miss the final day of our Awakening the Garden month.
That would make no sense.
That would make no sense. We've been talking about the garden all month. And John is an amazing gardener and has an amazing home with his parents, and they do gardening, and it's just beautiful. So that's our theme for the month, John. Awakening the Garden. And today is about what?
Planting seeds.
Planting seeds.
Planting seeds. So John said, sitting in our garden yesterday, reading an Oz book, heard many birds, life being sustained, being fed by our community gardens and trees, and reminded me our garden is one part of my neighborhood green space, and thinking what to plant and nurture as one part of a loving community for birds, bees, native insects, and animals. So your talk reminds me, what does the community need me to grow and nurture?
What does the planet need us to grow and nurture?
And and that's the community, which is bigger than what do I need to grow. I mean, what am I being called to grow and nurture in my life that will support the rest of the world? And John goes on, right? Oh, everyone is welcome to our garden. And everyone is. Do we welcome people to our garden? Do we do that? Do we plant seeds and try to make sure that no one steals our tomatoes? Or do we plant seeds and grow them for the good of everyone?
That's very deep.
Okay. It is. It's very deep.
At least to my head cold it is.
So all of these things are interesting. And I think the real thing about prosperity is fascinating, our relationship to money, because I know that mine has shifted a lot over the years as well. And I particularly came at one point where I realized, where I got the idea that all needs are met, that all my needs are met in every moment. And that allowed me to move in a different way. And that has really supported the process. And that's part of even what happened with recently, and you saving up all the money, is that in the midst of some of my angst about things, I still knew that all needs were met. I just didn't know how.
Yeah.
Until you told me. So nice of you.
Okay. Yeah, it just reminds me of too, we were talking about our godson and his relationship with life, and anybody's relationship with life at 13, 14 years old. because it's a very different perspective, and we were talking about this a little bit, just how it's one thing to be an adult and have had some of these experiences, but how as a youth, how do you really shift your thinking? How do you really, because it's the end of the world to him if he can't do something or buy something, or there's, other things going on. But, those things that when you're our age, you kick and scream a little less.
Well, we know that time doesn't, that time moves on, and there's space for different things to happen over time. And just because we don't have it in this moment doesn't mean we don't have it. And we've learned to trust that because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and all those things. And for me, the struggle is how do I offer that to someone who does not have that experience at all, and doesn't see that, and who can get so tied into the world being such an unfriendly place.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, really? And then watching them create more of it because of their own decision about how the world is. There's no the room for compassion is missing because it just seems to be cut off. And so then I'm feeling compassion for him and trying to figure out how to support that, to support him in moving forward. And I think, we're looking at a teenager, but I think many of us, for a good portion of our lives, have lived in those kind of spaces.
Absolutely.
Right. And oftentimes when people come to start to realize this, it's a big change. It's a big movement. When we step into something new, it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, I think of us watching and doing the Tony Robbins thing a few weeks ago, and all these thousands of people on this thing, all ages, all countries, all everything. And all these people were having a revelation. Everybody had something new that showed up, and he didn't say anything that revolutionary, but either people hadn't heard it before, they hadn't heard it in that way before, they weren't ready to hear it before. Whatever the thing is, it's still that it was able to reach people in a new way. And it didn't matter how old you were or how young you were or how whatever you were, it still allowed you to shift something in your life. And I think that's the thing, that we think somehow we should get to a place where we're done.
Well, but I think you bring up a really interesting thing, because so to me that speaks to that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? And so do you have to be willing? Do you have to be ready on some level? Does there have to be, like, like when I look at kids and teenagers in particular, they're a little stuck in their story, which is understandable. We've all been there, because when you're 14 years old, you clearly know everything there is to know. There's, that's just the way the world is. And, people are stupid. Your teachers are stupid. The world is against you. I mean, there's a lot of that that's happening. And so, like, how does anyone at any age, because it's not only that age, I'm just using that age, how do you find that? I mean, there has to be an opening, right? On some level, or does there? I think we should talk about it after
we come back. Yeah, I think you're right.
But I'm letting you lead the commercial.
Okay. So, everyone, thank you for watching today, being a part of our show, Rockin the LOVE. We'll be back in a few moments right here on New Thought Media Network.
Hello, we're back. I'm Robyn,
And I'm Gil.
and we're here on New Thought Media, and we are
Rockin
rocking
the
the
LOVE.
love.
Woo!
All right. So the question before we left was,
About can we really be open to something? I mean, when are people open to something? When do people hear things? When are things able to penetrate and make a difference in terms of how we live our lives? Is it when it gets thrown at us, or is it when we're ready to hear it or see it? I think that was kind of the question.
yeah, and do people have to be open in order for the change to occur, right?
Yeah, and a thought I had was a very not technical, but very physical example. And any of you who have lived in snow country or been in snow country know that as long as you have a sealed bit of cement, it's good. But as soon as there gets to be a crack in it, then the water gets in, it freezes, and it pushes it open. And there's more water that can get in, and it'll freeze and it'll push it open. So once there's an opening in it, something can actually affect it and change it, but not until that opening exists. And I think that's kind of where it is. I think sometimes the opening doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can be a moment when we just go, oh gosh, I don't know. Nothing makes any sense. I don't know. And then we'll hear something. And in that moment, because of being so vulnerable or whatever, we'll allow ourselves to see something we didn't see before. And so that then opens us up a little bit more to the next step. That's kind of my thought about it.
Or could it be that, like, there is like an iceberg, and if you cover it, it's going to melt? If a block of ice, and if you put a blanket on it or you wrap it up in something, it's going to melt if it's not in its natural environment. So, and I say this to say, does it have to be that there's an opening, or what about when as practitioners and ministers, this is what y'all do, right? We hold this space of love and truth and possibility. We don't go, yeah, but might not work over here, right? So I don't know is the answer for me. I hear your scientific hoo-ha, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there needs to be an opening.
Well, John shares that learning meditation and visioning boosted my ability to hear spirit and plant new seeds. And so that's like learning something that gave us a new way of seeing things, that allowed us to shift. And was John ready for that when that happened? Or because it happened, he became ready?
Yeah, I'm going to go with that. I mean, if we believe that all people are innately good, God, and there's only one of us here, and we are love, then there's always an opening somewhere. We just have to find it,
right?
Or it just has to open.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear that. So many years ago, I was a younger person. Okay, that's not why I said that. So there was an opportunity for me to lead a group, be part of leading a group to Appalachia, where we went and worked on some homes through an organization there called the Appalachian Service Project. And so we had a group of kids from the church, my local church in Simi Valley at the time. And we flew across the country, and we drove, and we did all this stuff, and we went to I'm trying to think of where we went with that group. if we were in Virginia or Kentucky. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We went to one of the centers and we spent the week there working, and we worked with families and people that had homes that, you know, didn't really have any insulation or any, you know, had cracks in the walls you could see through because they were just boards, had refrigerators with nothing in them, these kinds of things. And we put a new roof on the house, and we added insulation and drywall inside to help make the house warmer and drier and all those things. So anyway, so that was all well and good. And about, I don't know, a year or so later, I was talking with one of the kids who's been in the youth group, and he said, you know, I went to my friend's house up in some part of the city here, and have you ever been up there? And I said, yeah, I've been up there. I said, there's a lot of houses that, you know, look like people don't have much money, like they really could use some help. And he said, I'm just wondering, like, why we went all the way across the country to help people when there's people right here that we could have helped. And I said, well, that's a good question. But
let me ask you a question.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. Did you ever notice those people in those houses before you went across the country? Right. No, he hadn't noticed it. And so that brings up that idea of sometimes we have to kind of create the opening. We there's opportunities to help people get to a place where they're open to hear something, to see something, to learn something new about how they need to relate to the world or what they need to be planning in their world. So this suddenly now this young man had a whole new sense about compassion and service in his world that he had planted because he had been exposed to something in a faraway place, you know?
Yeah. You don't know what you know till you know.
Right.
You don't see what you see till you see. No. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. No, that's my favorite story. I love that story because I think that's just, it's the way the world works. You know, there's so much we're not aware of, conscious of until we're conscious of it.
Well, and it goes back to that question of, is that because we've become open to being conscious? Is that because we've been put in a situation that's unfamiliar and therefore we're allowing things in that we wouldn't normally pay attention to? Is it because we've hit a crisis in our lives and now, you know, because we don't have any answers, we're open to all the answers? I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to get there. But at some level, I think those situations create an environment where we become willing, we become open to some degree. And so it goes back to, do we have to be open to receive it? And I think, yes, I think we do at some level. I think we have to be open to looking at what are the seeds. If I insist that, you know, the world, that there isn't enough money, that, you know, I've got to have a job in order to have money, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, then it doesn't matter. That's what I'm planting out there. And it's not going to change unless I am open to the possibility that something else could be true. I can't plant a different seed if I don't know that purple corn exists, then I will continue to plant yellow corn. Even though the other exists and maybe I would like it more.
Maybe not. Maybe you plant and ask for creative corn. You ask for highest and best. You ask for something different. You know, it's like how often does it, using the garden metaphor, how often do you plant seeds for something and all of a sudden there's something else there that's come from somewhere else, right? I mean, yes, generally, yes, it's true what you say, but
what I say is generally true.
don't get carried away. But yeah, no, it is interesting. So, okay, so here we are. We're at the end of that. I think, for me, what's come up the most during this month was how struck different people were about the intention, setting intention.
Yeah.
And, I sometimes forget that that's such a big deal and so important.
But that's like the seed, right? That's the seed we're planting, is that intention, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if my intention is to have a positive experience, is to have a relationship that works, is to share love, then I'm going to have a different experience than if my intention is to protect myself, is to make sure no one does anything bad to me, right? I mean, it's a whole different thing.
Okay.
Does that not make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, but you don't like it.
I have a cold. Leave me alone. Yeah. So, but anyway, but going forward, so how do we stay open? How do we create the space to really? I mean, I think it's like there's these steps of like cultivating the garden and like we talked about the clearing and the amending, but this isn't just like a one-time process. Like, now I've cleared, check. It's something you've got to continually go back to, and you've got to weed and assess and take ownership of what's there. I'm talking to you.
No, okay, fine. Well, I was thinking as you were saying that is that, the metaphor of a garden is, you're doing this on like a yearly basis or on a quarterly basis or something, where you're going in and you're kind of clearing out and you're preparing for the next season and whatever. And that happens with us. I think in our process, it happens on a much more day to day, week to week, hour to hour basis, depending on what's going on, where we have to acknowledge what we need to clear out. We need to release those things we don't need. We need to assess, what do we really want in this situation? What is it we really want? And then we have to try to plant the seed for what we want to get out of it. If I really want to be in relationship with you, but I decide that I'm going to plant the seed of I don't care, then that's not going to work. If I'm not willing to plant a new seed, if I'm not willing to take the hard step and say, okay, I love you, this is what it's about. And that's when we're in, that's the space.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And we've got to look at really, the next steps, kind of what you're talking about, moving towards, so there's the garden, and we do have to cultivate it, and we do have to think about when the seasons change and how we have to take care of it and all the things that come up. And we do have to have that faith and that trust that somewhere under there something's growing.
Mm-hmm.
I just keep watering. I mean, how many times do you plant to plant? Or like when I plant with our kids, we'll look at that pot for a very long time, and I'm like, oh dear God, please just grow, just a little sprout, and you get that little green sprout, and it's like, okay. So it's like, but any number of times they would have given up on it. we would have thrown the plant away. We would have decided, oh yeah, I didn't water it enough. I didn't take care of it. There's nothing there. And so it's like, it's moving into the next steps of having that, being standing in the faith that what you've done is going to bear fruit.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what that looks like, it's going to bear fruit. Will it be the perfect roses? I don't know. But will it something come up on the rose tree? It will. Or what about, like, John can speak to this more, trees that like don't give fruit for a while and then all of a sudden they give fruit, I mean, it's like, how, because we lose faith and we lose sight of what our maybe what our intention was, or we lose faith that it can happen, and we think, oh, we better do it a different way, which kind of goes to what happens to us, which we call the 98% rule, which perhaps we'll talk about next week.
I don't know.
But which is not going the 100%, like giving up right when you're at 90%, 98%. Yeah, so it's like there's more to planting the garden, and that's the challenge for people, to stay in that place and to not give up, and to really, it's like you're not only planting a garden, you're planting yourself, right? You're planting yourself and you're saying, okay, I am committed to believing that I am one with the one, that this is, that this is possible, that all things are possible in me, as me, and through me, and that I am going to see this happen. Right?
Faith is believing in what is unseen.
Yes.
And faith is a lot about when we plant the seeds, because there's this appearance, this thing that happens where it looks like nothing's happening because we can't see it. And just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means we don't experience it happening.
Right.
But it's happening.
It's happening.
So it's still happening. So when we are, I mean, I think we could go through lots of examples in our lives of when we've been in that place and then all of a sudden you go, oh, okay, that's what's been brewing
Right.
all this time under the surface.
Right. And John says, teachers are essential for me as I learn to plant new seeds, new thoughts, and especially to nurture and flourish the seeds, ideas over the months. And that's so true. I mean, and that's why we have spiritual leaders and motivational speakers and, people that people look towards, right? Because they can go there and get that renewed faith.
And we have those people that just quietly do their thing, and you look at them and you go, how do they do that? But it reminds us that there's something more, because clearly they see it, they get it,
Yeah.
So from chasing butterflies, we cannot force someone to hear a message they are not ready to receive, but we must never underestimate the power of planting a seed. And so I think that's the thing. We plant a seed and we don't necessarily see anything from it in the moment, but eventually we will. And so that's true no matter what the seed is. If we plant that seed of contempt, if we plant that seed of unwillingness or whatever it is, even though it doesn't appear to do much, eventually we'll begin to see it. It'll show up, and then we'll have to deal with whatever that is.
It's true. And thinking back and putting that along with our God kids, I think like back to high school. And I think if we only knew what we know now back then, because really high school was truly the best example of planting seeds. You planted seeds about everything, oh, I'll never go out with Johnny because he's too popular, or I'm not popular enough because da da da, all of those, whatever, or good things, bad things. Those are just what popped into my head. But we continually, and I know this because this is what girls spend hours on the phone talking about. Oh my God, he looked at me and I think that, and affirming each other's doubts or fears or worries, or, you know what I mean? And so it's a very interesting time. So
That is interesting, because what it struck for me was, I remember this, and I knew other people that were different, but for whatever reason, well, and even in my family it was different, but for whatever reason, I was going to go to college. There was no question, and that was a seed I planted, and that was just there, and it grew as a result of that. It wasn't because my parents had been to college. It wasn't because of anything else. It was just, for whatever reason, somebody had planted. And I think that you're right. There's, in that time frame, we're putting things in the soil which are going to bloom out in our life somewhere.
yeah.
And if I'm in the unpopular group, that's going to bloom out in our life somewhere. If I can do whatever I want, that's going to bloom out in our group, in our life somewhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Oh, I'm exhausted.
Yes, indeed.
A lot of seed planting, a lot of digging here. So, any last words about this before we close out the garden? I think we're what?
Oh, do we want to take a break, or do we want to just keep
No,
going?
well, no, we're almost done.
Okay, we'll keep going. We won't bore you with the break. We'll keep moving.
So I think that we're really, I feel like we're really the magician in our life, right? And I think that, that coupled with the faith, it's like we just have to know that the magic is going to happen, like somehow we really get to create it and hocus pocus it, and it may not always look the way we want to, but yeah, that's what I think.
Well, this idea clearly has been batted around, has been instrumental in human existence for a long time. So if you go to biblical scripture, you hear, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, and a mustard seed is a very small seed, but that seed grows into a very large plant. And I think that idea that if you have and partly it's that, if you just have this tiny bit of faith, but it's also, I think, this faith in this tiny little thing. If we can trust that this tiny little thing will make a difference, then that shifts how we operate.
Well, and for the most part, we're trusting in an invisible thing.
An invisible thing.
That we are. So we're back to us.
Oh my gosh, I'm so confused now.
Well, if we are one with the one, then it's only us, right?
Which one? Okay, you're right. You're right. You're right. So one of the things I thought, that we could sort of leave people with today was ask yourself, what are you planting? Be aware of what you're planting and nurturing in your life. Just notice it. Not so much to judge it, but to notice which things you're nurturing, which things you keep coming back to in terms of planting in your garden. And then ask yourself, is this what I want? Is this what I want to grow? If this grows into the plant, if this grows into my life, is that going to be the thing that allows me to support myself, to support my community, to support my relationships?
Can you put my quote up, please?
Yes. Oh, I know I'm in the wrong place.
Leave people with this quote.
Wait. That one?
Yeah, you gotta move your thing. Every leaf that grows will tell you what you sow. will bear fruit. What?
Every leaf that grows will tell you. What
Right.
you sow will bear fruit. So if you have any sense, my friend, don't plant anything but love.
That's where we're living from. We're rocking it.
Rockin the LOVE. And sometimes apparently I have no sense at all, from according to Rumi.
You know, I don't know. Even when you're not in the love, there's still the love in you. So, you know, you can't escape it because at the end of the day, that's who you are. So, and that
And
goes for everybody out there.
I
At
was
the
gonna
end of the
say,
day, no matter how funky it gets, no matter how down on yourself you are or anybody else, you are that space of love.
it's all you can be. I mean, love is the absolute power of the universe, and that is what has chosen to reveal itself as us.
Yes.
So know that ultimately you plant some form of love.
And it's growing. And
And
we
it's
know,
growing.
we see it. And we can't wait to see you next week, next month, as we will have lots of new surprises and new topics. And we have requests for more giveaways. John, you've missed out on some giveaways. I'm just saying. And we hope to see you back here. So if you love us and you love New Thought Media and you love to see more of this and other people doing great work in the world, then we invite you to go to our page at ntmedia.org/donate and just give us a little something, something, because everything counts and everything matters, and there's nothing too small. And we do love the large as well. So you make the choice, but we just want to invite you to do that. And we're just happy to have you here. And we'll see you next week.
Plant a little love.